Well, here we are. After 6 years of teasing, the Avengers have finally faced off against Thanos, the Mad Titan. One of the biggest big bads in the Marvel Universe, who isn't connected to the Fantastic Four. Who? Yeah, fair point. And just like they threatened to do for equally as many years, the real-life Illuminati behind all of these films decided to split their magnum opus in half. The better to make twice as much money. Change the titles all you want, Kevin. I see you. You could have called this Infinity Crusade, but you don't actually care if people buy more comic books, do you? No, you come from the Toy Biz side of Marvel Entertainment, where the comic books are viewed as little more than advertisements and copyright renewal devices. No wonder you fit in so well with the rest of Disney. You cannot hide. I see you. Wait. This isn't right. We've done this before. What? Fuck it. Nothing. Keep reviewing. As the second part of a two-parter, Endgame is... it's alright. With a big old asterisk next to it that leads to a note at the bottom of the page that says, for half a movie. But Marvel's been selling us half movies for the last 10 damn years, and we let them all get away with it too. At first, the novelty of their premises really was enough to string we internet nerds and our associated media outlets along. In a fake democracy like ours, ruled as it is by oligarchs and politicians who always swear to hold the oligarchs accountable, which usually means charging them a fine so small they earn it back in the time it takes them to cut the fucking check. Seeing heroes from the 1960s kick ass in high definition really did feel like being catered to by a system that otherwise just takes everything from us. The civilians, as ever, didn't care about much beyond, will this movie shut my kids up for 2 to 3 hours? And with our powers combined, these Marvel movies became the biggest entertainment properties in world history, almost without encountering any meaningful criticism whatsoever. I mean, I'm doing my part, but I'm such a dumbass, I went with blip.tv over YouTube back in 2011, and I maintained a healthy contempt for this platform all the way up until 2014, when Blip disappeared. Got snapped into a cornfield by private equity shitheads. Actually, no, by Maker Studios, which by then was a division of the Disney Corporation. And in the meantime, I ceded all kinds of prime internet real estate to the Merry Marvel Marching Society, as I call them. They let these movies' mediocrity pass for the new fucking awesome, because almost everything else in the last 10 years that's claimed to be fucking awesome has so often turned out to be trite bullshit. And remember when I said Civil War was nothing but an excuse for Infinity War to waste its whole first act putting the band back together? Turns out that was a trick so nice they used it twice. So after our Avengers discover Thanos has destroyed the Infinity Stones, and kill him anyway, mostly out of impotent spite, we fast forward ahead 5 years. So this 3-hour movie can waste its entire first hour establishing a whole bunch of new status quos, and then getting the band back together. Again. Bit like what happens in the middle of Fant Four Stick, if I'm being uncomfortably honest. Though, presumably, in this case, it was intended to happen from the start. I hope. Some of these new status quos are even interesting. Tony and Pepper have settled down and had a kid. And Tony's finally building his lady love a proper suit. Captain America's leading the therapy sessions that he probably should have been going to this whole time. Thor's sulking in his gamer hovel in New Asgard, Norway. Bruce Banner's finally stopped depersonalizing his rage and become Professor Hulk. The end point of his character arc that some of us have wished for ever since we saw the foreshadowing on the wall of Ang Lee's Hulk movie back in 2003. Hawkeye's Norman fucking Rockwell family got snapped away, so now he's in Japan, killing Yakuza. And, at least in my headcanon, having a torrid love affair with Tatsu Yamashiro. And Black Widow's become, for lack of a better word, the Batman of this team, coordinating a far-flung roster of heroes who are, honestly, working better together now than they have in the last 3 years' worth of movies. This could have been quite the examination of how loss and trauma make people put all of their petty bullshit aside and finally come together into something greater. But we should all know by now that's a hideous lie. Horrific, senseless tragedy does not actually make anybody any better. Like the formula that turned Alec Holland into Swamp Thing, all it really does is make you more of what you already are. Meaning the shit-scared, totally ineffective governments of this earth should have come out of all of this even more fascist than they already were and shipped all of our Avengers off to Super Guantanamo for failing to stop the sci-fi rapture, if nothing else. But this isn't a Prison Break movie. Instead, someone, somewhere along the line, decided Avengers 4 should be a heist film. And a time travel film at the same time. They invented the phrase time heist to cover this, which I actually like because it makes me think of the phrase stealing time. They conceived this plot in order to make Ant-Man instrumental, rather than just have him pop up in the middle of the second act like he does in Civil War. Instead, here, by emerging from the end of his last film, Scott proves that time travel is possible. A walking, talking flux capacitor. So Ultron's two dads put their big brains together while the rest of the team collaborates on an oral history of the Infinity Stones. And that gets us to problems unique to this film as opposed to the by now standard Marvel movie problems. Don't worry, those will pop up too. These movies know they should be driven by the development of their characters. But since 2015, most of them have been about maneuvering 6 MacGuffins into their proper places for the Infinity War and subsequent crusade. Or time heist. Between all of the fast-forwards and 40-minute climactic battles, we're left to wonder just who the hell any of these characters really are. They seem to arbitrarily change from film to film based on the whims of their manufacturers. Except for maybe Scott. He seems pretty consistent. As if all their really interesting life events occurred off-screen, where they want to attract the attention of critics. Or uncritical consumers who might become critics after going, hey, wait a second, a few too many times. And that was before time travel became possible. That it is possible means I'm supposed to pull my hair out over time travel mechanics, as the film depicts them. Instead, I'm tearing my hair out over the fact this film presents 2 different versions of time travel, and then ignores either or both of them whenever it's convenient. Hulk explains very early on that no, Back to the Future really was just a movie. The past is the past, and it is unalterable. Until Bruce goes back in time to 2012 and meets the Ancient One, who basically tells him, no, Dr. Banner, you're out of your field and talking out of your big green ass. Far as she's concerned, Back to the Future rules totally apply. Change something in the past and you create a new, potentially dystopian future. Like the one where Dormammu swallows the whole world without a Doctor Strange around to beat him with Groundhog Day. Meanwhile, in 2014, the presence of 2 nebulas on the same Wi-Fi network alerts Thanos to the Avengers' plan, as well as spoiling the previous film for him, which is the upcoming film from his perspective. But forget all that. This is why people hate temporal mechanics. In response, Thanos concocts a plan to replace 2023 Nebula with 2014 Nebula, travel into the future, steal the gathered stones, and then remake the universe in his own image. I.e., what he should have fucking done in the first place. Fuck all that COD eugenics shit. We do not have a resource scarcity problem, we have a capitalism problem. So in the end, it will be socialism or Thanosism. Bernie 2020, god damn it. In keeping with all of Thanos' plans, this one is fatally flawed, since it gives 2023 Nebula enough time to spoil the first two Guardians of the Galaxy movies for 2014 Gamora, including how Gamora's future actions eventually turned her sister to the light side of the Force. This is enough to turn Gamora, and almost enough to turn 2014 Nebula. But she always was the stubborn sister in this fucked up family. So in the end, this forces 2023 Nebula to kill her 2014 self, and in keeping with her character, she stubbornly refuses to blink out of existence. Oh, but I'm not done yet. The Thanos Tony Stark snaps out of existence at the end of this film is the Thanos from 2014, brought forward to 2023 by 2014 Nebula, R.I.P. Meaning he was never around to destroy Nowhere, throw Gamora off a cliff, and invade Earth in 2017, wiping the entire need for this movie out of existence. Oh wait, I forgot. You can't change the past. Unless you can. Until you can't. It gets worse the more you think about it. Especially at the end, when Captain America decides to go back in time, return all the stones to their proper wheres and whens, and then stay back in 1945 to finally have his dance with Peggy. Peggy Carter, who died back in 2016, exacerbating the Civil War. Are we to believe that old Steve was just loitering in the next hospital room over all those times his younger self came to visit old Peggy? Never mind the fact that 2023 Captain America went back to 1945 and let all manner of historical horrors unfold without even trying to change them. Even if Banner is right and you can't change the past, you know goddamn well Captain America would try. Fatalistically continuing to fight against long odds and a universe that seems contrived specifically to fuck with you is kind of his entire thing? Or it was, until the end of this film. Presumably because his actor wants to A, direct, and B, eat a sandwich. I read somewhere that Evans was contractually forbidden from eating carbs sometime in 2010, and while I can't confirm that, I can confirm it's basically what women in Hollywood have been forced to put up with for forever. So, not outside the realm of possibility is what I'm saying. So yes, it does appear that Back to the Future really was just a movie in this movie universe. The past is the past, and it's completely unalterable even when it comes forward to the future and dies. Yet somehow, when the future goes back into the past to live, that's okay, I guess. It's a fatalistic, mechanistic view of the space-time continuum, more akin to Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Bogus Journey than it is to anything else. I know, I'm probably the only one who cares. The rest of you probably just threw up your hands and went, I hate temporal mechanics, as well you should have. I just wanted to lay all of that out there in order to say it took the Terminator franchise 5 movies to get this cavalier with its time travel. What Marvel's done here is what we in the biz like to call abusing the privilege. And they abused it specifically so they could wallow in nostalgia for themselves, creating a movie that plays out more like a greatest hits album. Hey, remember the Shatari invasion of New York? The Netflix series called it The Incident, but I don't know if that's in continuity anymore. Remember the pathos Iron Man 2 wrung out of having Tony reconcile with his dead father? Remember when Asgard was taking up space on some ILM hard drive? Remember Star-Lord dancing across planet Dark Souls? A friend of mine saw this scene and was like, it's like that game you play. And she meant Dark Souls, so every uninhabited planet in the MCU is now Planet Dark Souls in my head. Especially Vormir. The reason people make Back to the Future a keystone in their understanding of the way time travel works in movies is it lays out clear rules and follows them to the degree dramatic license allows. If Marty blinked out of existence as soon as he fucked up his parents' first meeting, there'd be no story. This, theoretically, frees up the viewer to get into the emotional journey of the characters, which I'm supposed to be doing here. It's harder here, though, because, with the exception of Hawkeye and Black Widow, I'm not sure who any of these fucking people are. Both because of the 5-year skip ahead, and, let's be honest, the general quality of Marvel movie writing up to this point. What am I to make of a Captain America who begins the movie talking about the importance of continuing the good fight after a senseless tragedy, to honor the memories of those we've lost, if nothing else? And who ends the movie going, screw it, I saw my old girlfriend back in the 1970s, and I've got a time machine in my hand. See y'all in 80 years, fuckers. I'm gonna go get laid. I mean, that's character development of a sort. I'm not supposed to think about that. I'm supposed to be overjoyed to see Steve hand the shield off to Sam Wilson. Because that way, he and Bucky can spend their whole movie fighting over it instead of developing themselves. I'm supposed to be just as overjoyed to see Tony as a husband and father. But I'm not a Nietzschean, so I need more than 2 scenes to actually make me care. The last time Tony reconciled with his father, he was still technically single, though I'm sure he would have set his Facebook status to, "It's complicated." This time, he can speak parent to parent to 1970s Howard Stark, which is supposed to be novel enough to stop me from going, thought we moved past all this shit in 2010. What the fuck, movie? Granted, there are some issues that people never really move past, and Tony Stark is the poster boy for circling psychological drains. That's why I stopped caring about movie Tony 3 years ago, after he decided to make all the same mistakes that made me stop caring about his comic book counterpart a decade prior. Now, from the comfort of emotional distance, I can find it funny when Pepper has to shove Peter Parker out of the way so she can get a moment alone with her dying husband. I should be horrified at how callously these movies prioritize brand synergy over their own characters, but I am sadly used to it by now. So while Tony Stark still seeks... say that 3 times fast. So while Tony Stark still seeks, and once again finds, a reconciliation with his father, it appears Thor has been craving a reconciliation with his dead mom all this time. First, we've actually heard of his dead mom since 2014, but it's nice to see Freya again. She was one of the most level-headed people in this universe, so of course she had to die. The fridge-stuffing gods required a sacrifice, and I guess I should be happy they didn't take Natalie. I'm being facetious, though. Thor's in a funk because he really should have gone for the hand. And in the 5-year time jump, he's let himself go. And by let himself go, I mean he got a little pudgy and started dressing like a normal everyday schlub. Because A-list Hollywood actors, and the movie studios they work for, have a long and storied history of thinking that being fat and unfashionable is just the funniest thing in the world. Going back to 2014 gives Thor the opportunity to get a parental pat on the head, yes. But it also gives him a chance to steal Mjolnir from his younger self. And there's the reconciliation with his father right there. An external source of validation that comes to your hand when you call it. It's what heroes crave. Except, of course, it's not. It's what we, everyday schlubs, crave. And oh my god, I think I just got the joke. Good joke. Everybody laugh. Roll on snare drum. Curtains. Curtains for Black Widow too, apparently. Christ, Nat, why'd you have to be so noble? Actually, if you weren't, you'd have even less character development than the rest of these ciphers, so good on you, Natalia Arianova. Not having a Black Widow origin movie to refer back to might have actually helped in this situation. Without it, it allows me to pretend that Nat saving Hawkeye from his war with the Yakuza and need to sacrifice himself to the Soul Stone is some kind of parallel to that time he saved her from whatever the fuck the Russian super soldier program was doing when they first met. It also works in the immediate, because while the snap took Clint's happy family away from him, it made Nat adopt the whole team as one big fucked up family, which the Avengers certainly are in their best of times. With Clint paramount among them, since he's the one who invited her to be Auntie Nat way back when, before she knew any of the rest of these jokers. Faced with the chance to give Clint back the family she never had, and to make things demonstrably better for the one she's found through work, she sacrifices herself to the Soul Stone and becomes the hero of the day. No joke. Unironically, press F to pay respects to a real one. See in prequels, I guess. Shit. All that aside, it's still like that fucking gangster said in Dark Knight, we have to solve real problem. And the real problem is, these movies have recreated all of the problems that comic book fans have spent my entire life complaining about, as well as all the problems that non-fans say kept them from getting into comics in the first place, and that ex-fans say eventually pushed them away. Paramount among them is the consistent interrupting of everything, including everyone's character arcs, for a big dumb crossover event that's sure to change everything. But don't they always? And if everything's always changing, then there's no status quo for the big dumb crossover event to actually change. If the one constant is change, then why get emotionally invested in anything beyond the simple act of brand recognition? And what the fuck happened to Sharon Carter, anyway? Who? Yeah, fair point. The term endgame used to be reserved for the last few moves of a chess match, when the losing opponent is already screwed thanks to a mistake they made way back when. Maybe it was when Tony and Cap let Thor port himself away at the end of the Age of Ultron without establishing a communication strategy. Shit, even Carol Danvers and Nick Fury managed that much. In 1995, no less. Or maybe Thor fucked it up for everyone by looking in all the wrong places. If he'd just walked into the right bar on the right asteroid colony or drift, he might have heard a couple of regulars jawing about that shit that went down on Xandar. As in, hey, did you hear about that shit that went down on Xandar? Yeah, man. Fucking Hume held an Infinity Stone in his bare-ass hand, and he didn't die. Apparently, thanks to the power of friendship. And then the first one goes, what kind of Disney movie bullshit is that? Probably wouldn't say bullshit, but I'm sure extraterrestrials in the MCU know about Disney movies. And that's exactly the kind of joke that live-action remaking, Star Wars owning, resting on Marvel's laurels Disney would try to tell about themselves. An attempt at taking their own piss that hilariously backfires and comes off as the most treacly kind of self-regard. Like the Dumbo remake, or Mary Poppins 2. Our Earth-based heroes certainly screwed up by letting their first big political crisis tear them apart. And Doctor Strange screwed up by acting too good for all this shit back when he met Thor in Ragnarok. A simple, yeah, well, you were gone, your other teammates all got into this big pointless pissing contest over whether or not to ship Captain America's brainwashed best friend off to Super Guantanamo. Might have made all the difference, but it's too late now. You can't change the past. Unless you can. If this is a chess match, and we are in the end game, then we're the opponent who fucked up way back when. Maybe it was back in 2010 when Iron Man 2 showed us what the future was going to be, and nobody listened. Maybe it was back in 2012 when we let Avengers 1 make all that money. Or maybe it was last year when we gave them $1 billion over a weekend for half a movie, secure in the knowledge that we'd have to wait a whole year for the other half. And we acted grateful for it. Or at least some of y'all did. Simpering corporate loyalists. Fans of not a character, not the actor who plays them, not the artists who bring these actual fucking movies to life, but the producer supposedly in charge of running this whole show, who is now apparently going to be in charge of Star Wars as well. Because putting history's two biggest movie franchises into the hands of a single guy sounds like a great fucking idea. The golden age of Hollywood is back, baby. Except back during the first golden age, there were more than 4 studios. I am genuinely curious to see where these Marvel movies go now that they don't have to shackle themselves to a big dumb crossover event and they have no effective competition whatsoever. But my curiosity is tempered. I've been burned before, by Marvel, years before the Disney buyout. Up to the Disney buyout, and for some time after, the watchword of these movies was continuity. That was the big thing that they were going to be importing to the silver screen. A vast network of interlocking stories, feeding off each other in a glorious symbiosis. Nowadays, these movies seem to be leaning on another comic book trope that's been amazing and annoying we fans throughout my entire lifetime. The sprawling, spectacular vista, usually depicting the end of some climactic battle, that sees all of our heroes arrayed in their most dramatic poses. The splash page, we call it. Though most of them, the best of them, most famous of them, usually take up 2 pages and are arranged horizontally, with the occasional rebel who'll draw something that'll make you have to flip the comic on its side. Once upon a time, another comic book writer, artist, producer built an entire multimedia franchise out of dramatic splash pages, at the expense of everything else, including his own one-note, perpetually reset back to factory default characters. That man's name was Todd McFarlane, and nothing beside remains round the decay of Spawn's colossal wreck. Except, of course, for a toy company that's honestly doing better than any comic book company ever could. And the lone and level sands, which stretch far away. Just saying, Kevin. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hit the like button, as usual. Whether you liked it or not. No, I'm just kidding. But if you want to see more, hit the subscribe button. Special thanks to our glorious patrons, Mr. Hootiedean, Detective Steve, The After Movie Diner, and Stu G. And if you'd like to do to me what some of y'all just spent a month trying to do to Martin Scorsese, then please feel free to tell me just how wrong I am in the comment section down below. Next time, well, it's Star Wars season. December is Star Wars season now, whether we like it or not.